Hello and welcome back to our study of Psalms. Today we're looking at Psalms chapters 3 through 5. Now Psalm 3 was written by David as he was running away from his son Absalom. Now some of you, if you have a good study Bible, it might tell you that he's running away from Absalom. But for anybody that doesn't remember that story, doesn't know who Absalom is, it happens in 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 1 through still 1 Samuel chapter 16, 14. But to give a quick summary, David's son Absalom tries to steal the throne from his father, and instead of fighting back to keep it, David runs away, and he takes his men with him, and they just run away, and they don't fight. And he didn't do this because he was afraid of the fight. He did it because he loved his son, and he didn't want to see his son die. But Absalom did not feel the same way towards his father. He wanted to kill David so that he would be the only rightful king, that there would be no challenge to his throne, even though it was not rightfully his, it was his father's. So David ran from Absalom, and that's where we pick up this psalm. So David starts out in the first couple verses acknowledging that in the eyes of the people, there's no help for him in God. He is on his own. So the people of his nation, he is the king, but they see that his son has just kind of stolen his throne, and God has done nothing about it. David looks like he's on his own, but David, who was called a man after God's own heart, doesn't believe that for a single second. In verse 3, he says, "You, O Lord, are a shield around me." He recognizes the danger of the situation, but he was still confident that God would deliver him. So then he gives God the glory for whatever comes his way. He acknowledged that he really has no control over even if he's going to wake up the next morning. It all depends on God. And he wraps up chapter 3 by asking God to rise up and deliver him. See, David knew the reality of his situation, and he knew all he was dealing with, but he also knew that God was in control, and he's asking God to take care of him. So now here's something that I want you to take from this situation with David. It could be that you don't have an answer for what's going on in your life, but God does. Just keep that in mind the next time that the storms of life roll in and you don't know what's going on. You don't know what to do next. You feel like you're all alone. Remember that God is still in control even if you can't feel it. So David, he starts off chapter 4 asking God to answer him when he calls. He points out that God is the source of everything good, and he's upset that people can't grasp that. But look how he ends this one. "You have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and new wine abound." So David says that God has put more joy in his heart than all the worldly possessions could ever do for these people. So this psalm reminds us that God provides confidence and encouragement even in the middle of our suffering. We in turn are able to share that confidence and encouragement with others. Now the last psalm that we're going to talk about today is Psalm 5. David's getting a little on the whiny side here if you ask me, and he's asking God to consider his sighing and pay attention to the sound of his cry. He shows us in verses 4 to 6 that God has nothing to do with wickedness and evil. Those things the Lord does, he does not tolerate, and we would do well to avoid them in our lives too. And then he wraps it up by praising God for his faithful love. David knows that the Lord loves him and that the Lord is going to take care of him, even if he's not moving fast enough for David's sake, for David's liking. He then ends this chapter with a verse that should comfort us. "For you, Lord, bless the righteous one. You surround him with favor like a shield." So David was confident that God would act on his behalf no matter how bad his situation got. And we can have this same confidence. Guys, our God loves us and he cares for us. And there's no safer place to be than covered under the shield of God's love. And that is Psalms chapter 3 through 5. Make sure you're reading those, and I will see you guys tomorrow in the book of Job.